All right. Hello, everybody. Come on in. We're getting everybody in from the waiting room. As people make their way in. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening, and welcome to a Friday night exciting Ask Us Anything webinar, or at least we'll try to make it as exciting as possible. First, before we get into the questions, we're going to have all of us introduce ourselves to you. And so I'll start it off. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering, and I'm joined by all of our staff here, and I'm going to let Becky kick off the rest of the introductions.
Good evening. My name is Becky. I'm the Associate Director for Undergraduate Admission at Viterbi. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Angie. I'm a Senior Assistant Director. Thanks for being here with us today.
Hi, everyone. Excited to have you here on this Friday. My name is Stacy Badger. I'm the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admission for Viterbi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Cox. I am also the Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admission for Viterbi, and welcome and thanks for joining us.
So here's how this evening's going to go. We're not going to give a presentation. We're not going to go through any slides. We're just going to take your questions and do our best to answer them as best as we possibly can and as many as we possibly can. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen there, you'll see the Q&A function. Go on in and type your question into the Q&A. What we're going to do is we're going to give a couple minutes for people to understand what questions are being asked, because as you read those questions, you can upvote them. And so what we will do is answer the questions that are the most upvoted, the most popular questions in that order. So make sure that you go on through, type in your questions into the Q&A. If you see other questions that you like or other questions that are similar, upvote them up, and we'll make sure that we will get to as many as we possibly can. A couple notes before we get started. Here's some common questions that are often asked. First off, when's the deadline? Well, the deadline is January 15th. And so we are, what is that, 8 days away? So it's next Saturday. You got to get that in. Get the application in by January 15th. And January 15th is by the end of the day. So 11:59 p.m. in your time zone. Okay, so just as long as it's in by your time zone, that's all that matters. You don't worry about Pacific or anything else. Other thing you should note is that the Common App system, the computers for the Common App, are East Coast based. And so you'll see it timestamped as whatever the East Coast is. Don't worry about that. As long as you know that you got it in by midnight of your particular time zone, you're fine. And often we get questions about transcripts and letters of recommendation and anything else. If those questions come, if those things come after the January 15th deadline, that's totally fine. Just make sure you get your common application and your writing supplement in by January 15th. That's all you got to do. Make sure you get that in, and then you are good to go. Transcripts, everything else can come in later, but you do need to get that in as quickly as possible, because we can't review or make a decision on your application until your file is complete. And your file is not complete until we get that information. So, okay, we got some questions here. I'm going to ask that you always keep an eye on that Q&A function so that you guys can upvote, and make sure that you just keep upvoting as much as you possibly can, because that will help us understand which questions we should be answering in that particular order. And so the first question that has gotten the most upvotes, which I'll answer, we'll answer as a group here live, is from Chaya. Thank you for asking this question, Chaya. What values are you looking for in our supplemental essays? I've heard that students with a demonstrated passion are valued by college admissions. Is this what USC looks for? Who'd like to take that first?
I will. We get that question a lot. What are you looking for in an essay? What should I write my short answers about? What do you guys want to see? And we really don't have an answer to that question. So there's nothing specific we are looking for in your answer. There's, it's not write your essay about this and you'll be admitted. What we are trying to get from your essays and from your short answer questions is just to get to know you. So if you have a passion for something, and I think what you're kind of alluding to in your question is a passion for engineering. If you have a passion for engineering that you can write about and you want to talk about, great. If you have a passion for dance and theater, great. If you have a passion for, graphic design, great. And so we just want to get to know you as a student and as a person and what your interests are, why you want to study engineering or why you want to minor in something outside of engineering or what you want to get involved in. We're just looking to understand who you are as a person. So there's nothing specific we're looking for. It's really just be authentic, let us get to know you and your interests, and that's what we want to see.
Michael, you want to add some context to the link you put?
Yeah, definitely. So I put a link into the chat window that is a blog post all about answering the USC supplemental questions or the Viterbi supplemental questions. So we get the question a lot, like Becky mentioned, what should I write my essays about? This goes into a little bit more detail for each question that we ask, how to approach it. In general, there's, not a lot, like Becky said, that we're looking for. It really just comes down to being authentic and being yourself. So that's kind of the top level summary of it. But if you go into the blog post, it'll go into more detail.
Yeah, for everyone, on this particular call, I think that what I think we should address is that applying to college sucks. It's a stressful experience. It's something that you are worried about because you feel like no matter what you do, you might make a mistake and that might ruin your entire future or success moving forward because of something you did wrong in filling out an essay, or God forbid, putting the wrong snack on the application. And so I think to take a couple steps back from this process, and I want to pull a couple things away from Becky and Michael's response. The application is your opportunity to tell us everything about you so that we can get to know you a little bit better. There aren't any right or wrong answers to anything we're asking, nor are we looking for anything in particular other than, like we've said multiple times, trying to get to know you. And so don't read into it. Don't try to figure out, oh, they're asking this, that means I should probably say something like this because that's what they're looking for. The minute you start adding that level of what I would refer to as strategy to the application process, you are diminishing your level of authenticity of who you really are, and therefore not allowing us to get to know you very well. And it won't come across very well, to be honest with you. So don't try to think there's a right answer to it. And I know that's challenging because as high school students, and likely successful high school students, those that are joining us on a Friday night for an admission webinar, you likely do really well in school. And so one of the things you've come to know over the last 4 years is how to do well in school and how to get A's on papers and how to get A's on assignments and how to get A's in classes. And so a lot of this question is steeped in how do I get an A on the application? And there's no grade other than we're trying to get to know you. And the more that you try to kind of mold yourself into something or think that you're supposed to mold yourself into something, it doesn't work well. This is a process where something on your application will not actually make a yes or no admission decision. Our process is highly competitive, but that doesn't mean that doing something will change your chances of admission. When we look at our overall application pool, we're expecting around 14,000 total applications for the school. We're expecting around a 10% admit rate. You can't change that admit rate. You can't change your chances or handicap your chances based on something here or there. And it's not going to come down to one class or one grade here or there either. When it comes down to is that the majority of our applicants are very well prepared for our school, and we have to figure out how to decide which students we're going to admit when the grand majority of them we can admit, right? Because you've done all the necessary work that you need to do, and you've met those prerequisites, or that ability to be prepared for our curriculum. So answer the questions with honesty, answer the questions with authenticity, make sure that they're well written. The link that Michael has provided for you helps you understand a little bit more about why we're asking certain questions in our supplements. But to be honest with you, again, there's no strategy. Take your time, help us get to know you. And that's the best you can possibly do. The last thing, which I think is what you might be referring to, is demonstrated passion. I want to make sure I'm very clear about this. We do not practice demonstrated interest, which means, and we've gotten this question a lot this week for some reason, how can I tell you you're my number one choice because I was told I'm supposed to tell you you're my number one choice? A, I don't care. B, there's no place for you to tell us that you're your number one choice. And C, I'm assuming you've told multiple people that you're their number one choice. That's okay. I get that. So again, you're trying to do the right things. We don't need our butts kissed in this process. We don't need to know that we're your number one choice. I'm confident you're applying to a number of schools, and they're all great options. And if you like USC and you want to come to USC, we consider that you applying is enough demonstrated interest for us to realize that you want to come here or not. We're not going to read something and say, oh, I think this one likes us better, so we better admit this person. That's not what we're going for at all in this process. Once again, the grand majority of our applicants are absolutely fine and prepared for our curriculum. We could admit practically anyone, but it's about finding these different personalities and different people, and we need all types. And so we're not trying to get certain types into our school, if that makes any sense. So I hope that gives a broader approach to a lot of this. And I have a feeling that a lot of our questions as we go are going to be similar to this. You might hear us saying, well, we've already said that. So just let's get ready for that. Next question. Amelia has asked, does applying as engineering undecided affect my admission chances? I'll take this and I'll just say no. You do not have any improved or decreased chances of admission based on what you put down on your application. So first off, the first rule is you must apply to one of your first choice. You must apply to USC as your first choice major being listed as one of the Viterbi school majors. So those are all prepended inside of the application as VSE. So that's any of the engineering majors, including any of the computer science majors. And we also offer an option called engineering undeclared. That's just an option for you if you really don't have any idea what type of engineering you're thinking about. If you're debating between two, you are not undeclared. Just pick the one that you think is actually a little bit higher than the other one as far as your interest goes. You're not changing your chances of admission by putting one down over another. We don't have any impacted programs, which means we don't run different admission processes or different admission silos based on individual majors. And when you're admitted to the engineering school in one of our programs, you never have to apply to another one again. Admitted to one of our majors, when you're actually in the school, if you decide you don't like it and you want to switch, you can switch with no problem. So don't worry about that. You never have to worry about being in the wrong major. We have a very flexible program where we have those opportunities built in. Okay, Hannah, I think we already answered this. The second Viterbi specific supplemental essay asked, tell us which challenge is most important to you. Should we write about what we think is more important as in urgent or in what we are most interested in? You tell us, man. They're all urgent. They're all important. None of them are more important than the other. You tell us. I mean, how do you read that question? I mean, anybody else have any insight on that?
No, I say whichever one you want to do, how you want to read that question and then provide the answer for it. It's fine with us.
Yeah, they're all important. Awadesh, does USC provide merit scholarships for out-of-state students? I may not get need-based scholarship based on my family income. Yeah, we are not a state school. We are a private school. So we don't change anything based on in-state or out-of-state. So all of our opportunities are available for every student, regardless of where they come from. Jonathan, will the students be able to declare major or change majors? What are the requirements then? Anyone want to take that? I think I kind of answered this, but it's a slightly different approach.
Yeah, I mean, like Paul mentioned earlier, if you're admitted to one of our engineering or computer science majors, you're admitted to all of them. So there's no, you don't have to like do pre stuff to change from computer science to biomedical or any kind of combination. You just talk to your advisor and ask. And I think the hardest thing to do is having to submit a form that says I'm going to change my major, and that's it. I don't think we want to get too in depth into this, but it is harder to change your major if you're admitted outside of engineering, which is why we always recommend applying as your first choice being engineering. And we're not going to talk about the whole pre-engineering process because it's too much.
Well, yeah, I think that's an important point to bring up is that, you want to start in engineering because it's easy to walk away and change it. If you start somewhere else at the university and make your way in, there's a lot of hurdles involved. It can take up to a year and you got to do a lot more work. You don't want to go down that road if you don't have to. Ion, how does USC take into account grades from junior year? Is COVID-19 and the pandemic taken into consideration when considering grades or a downward trend in grades? Who would like to say that?
I'll take it. We actually have a section, or we don't, the Common App does. It has a section in the application where you can discuss anything related to COVID, how it impacted your education or outside of school, any experience that you had, anything that you want to tell us related to COVID, you can talk about it. And we want to be as accommodating as possible. We're definitely going to read the entire application, including that section, and take it into consideration. So, we want to be as understanding as possible. And this has impacted everybody, but it hasn't impacted everybody in the same way. So we want to hear the context of how it impacted you and how it impacted your educational experience.
I think to highlight that point, what you should all understand is that we are human beings that are reading what you are writing. and we're taking everything into consideration. And at no time do we put anything into a spreadsheet and calculate it. It's not like we're saying like, oh, looks like the GPA dropped, therefore let's not read this one any further. That's not helpful at all. More to the point, if you just take COVID out of the picture for a quick second, let's say we did see a downturn in grades, right? Well, that would cause some sort of interest, and eyebrows would go up, and we'd read a little bit more, and all of a sudden we see something happen that particular year. And then what's most interesting is, well, what happens after that? How does that change? And so again, this is not black and white ones and zeros. This is about watching how things happen over time. And us, when we're looking at grades in particular, are trying to understand your ability to do well in a more rigorous high-speed curriculum. And if rebounding occurs, that's great. If upward trends occur, great. What we really talking about downward trend in grades, take COVID out of the picture, is did you do really well freshman year and at each year you kept getting worse, or really good in math until you hit calculus, and calculus is where you got to see, like, that's challenging to us because calculus is going to be a strong indicator of your preparation for engineering. So higher level courses, that's where we want to see you doing the best, if that makes any sense. Becky, do you want to jump in?
No, I was just going to say one phrase I've been using a lot this year is context is key.
Yes.
And so, like Michael said, the pandemic has affected all of us. I'm just waiting for my 4-year-old to run in and join us tonight because he's hard to hold back, but it's affected all of us. And so those semesters, spring 2020, fall 2020, we all know what is going on. We all got sent home. We all got put on online. But like Paul said, if there's other things that went on, maybe a semester where you had a family emergency, or that context is really important for us to understand what was going on in your life, in your situation. And so giving us that additional information is always very, very helpful. And as much as you're comfortable providing, just a little bit of context is always really helpful, more if you're comfortable providing it, but just keeping that in mind as we're reviewing the applications. It's good for us to know what was going on in your particular situation.
Thank you. Tinchi Lo is asking, what does USC look for in the interdisciplinary areas of study supplement?
Well, I think it's important to remember, like USC and we in engineering, we're not looking for anything specifically. It's more about just what do you want to write about? And interdisciplinary education is a very broad subject as well. So are you interested in business? Are you interested in arts, humanities? We're not looking for anything specifically. However you want to answer that question, like Paul mentioned, like Becky mentioned, and we'll keep saying it again, there's no right or wrong answer. Just let us know what you want us to know and what you want us to read.
Right. Yeah, again, not looking for anything. And if there's a particular question about interdisciplinary study, do we remember how it's phrased? It's like
the question?
Yeah,
like
is there a
USC
specific question about interdisciplinary study?
Yeah,
There it is. I think
it's like USC values students who want to pursue interdisciplinary something.
It's one of the options, or that's one of the required questions?
It's one of the options.
Right. So that's the first point. If that doesn't speak to you and you don't want to answer that question, then don't choose another option. If that is interesting to you and you do have things that you're interested in interdisciplinary studies, then go for it. And that what interdisciplinary means is if you have interest in a number of different academic areas at the same time. Let's move on. Emily, is any experience related to engineering needed to be a student in Viterbi School of Engineering? No, absolutely not. I can't be any clearer about this. And this is something that Becky was referring to earlier, in that, first off, let's back up a couple steps. What high school offers engineering experiences? I mean, there might be a few of you out there that might have a few different things. Maybe there's a robotics club here, maybe like a really cool physics club here, but really engineering as a whole is not taught or even talked about or engaged in the high school level. We have no expectation that you have any experience in this. And I think that's the first thing, is that most often when you're going through this application process, you feel like that you're the one that's lacking. No, you're like everybody else. You're totally fine. And whatever you've done up to this point, as Becky mentioned earlier, if you're really into band, if you're really into athletics, if you're really into student government, if you're really into community service, you're really into faith-based activities, if you're whatever you're into, it doesn't matter. Being into something is way better than being into nothing. And so these ideas of the application are asking you, they're pinging you in different ways to think about different options inside of your life, to tell us about them so we can understand who you are and understand how you have made an impact on your community right now. Maybe we could project forward into how you might be able to contribute to our community. And again, there's no right or wrong answers, and there's no way to say someone has more value or less value than someone else. We just want to understand what that is. And so don't think that you're supposed to have engineering experience. It doesn't give you extra points if you do. It's an idea of just trying to understand who you are. If you have an interest in engineering and maybe that's a passion of yours that you want to get into, but you have no experience, that's cool too. So just, again, talk about what you've done so far. Hannah says, would we, I'm sorry, Becky, what?
No, this question makes me laugh.
Oh, would we be penalized if the song we choose for the theme song, short question, includes some inappropriate lyrics? Should we respond with an inappropriate lyric? Is that...
It's one of the quick takes. What's your theme song?
Yeah, no. No, I think we got a question earlier today about like, do you listen to all of the songs that I'm like, do we have time to go through and play every song as we're doing it? No. Again, trying to get to know you. If you like a certain song, say it to us. I mean, I know that occasionally I'll hear it, I'll look at a song, like, oh, cool, I like that too. Doesn't mean I'm going to admit somebody because of that or not admit somebody because of that. Sometimes I think, Stacey, you've said it before, where we enjoy this as a little diversion when we read the applications, right?
Yeah, it's another way to break up the application, both for you and for us when we're reading. So it's supposed to be fun. It's not a serious question. So don't overthink it. Don't
overthink it. God forbid it has a bad word. Oh my gosh. If you've ever been in one of our meetings, you know that bad words get thrown around way too often. I was going to say,
none of us offend easily. So.
We really don't. We probably are often offending way more people than offend us, or me in particular. Okay, do I need to tell how I plan to try to solve one of the 14 grand challenges in the last essay? Michael?
No, you don't.
You better have the exact plan. You better solve that. Otherwise, we are not admitting you. You better figure that out before you apply.
Yeah. It would be really cool if you could, I guess. We'd forward it along to the National Academy of Engineering, and then we'd only have 13 grand challenges then. But the blog post in the chat window goes into a little bit more detail on it, but you don't need to solve it. You just need to talk about the one most important to you.
And why. That's it. That's it. I mean, if you have some sort of idea, hey, cool, go for it. But I will tell you, like, we don't have any expectation for that. And you don't want to guess. I think is the best thing. Amelia, how are midterm grades considered? Are they weighted heavily? My grades are not so great, but they will improve by the end of the year. Send us whatever grades you have. And so we want to know if things get better, they get better. But keep in mind, end of year, meaning like after we've made all the decisions, we can only go off the data that we have at point of application. And so if they're not doing so great now, that's all we have. We can't say like, oh, it's going to be better. If you've sent us some supplemental information and say it's going to get better, we can definitely consider that. But, you know, more information is always good.
Yeah, just to add one more thing on here, the word weighed in here makes it sound like there's a formula.
Good.
And again, like Paul said earlier, there's no formula. There's no spreadsheet. We're not running any math. It's not a quantitative process to review your application. So when it comes to grades, context really matters. And we're not just looking at a number and then making a decision.
Thanks, Michael. Good point. Tinchilo, does USC offer optional alumni interviews for applicants? No, we get way plenty out of your application. That's all we need. We do not offer interviews. Would you recommend my recommendation came from my computer science teacher if I major in computer science? I don't care. This is often a question that we get. Becky, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, again, a lot of times students think it has to come from a math teacher or a science teacher or something that's related to the major they're applying to. And while that can be great, you know, you need to submit, I think you just need a council report, but a letter of recommendation. You want it to come from the professor or the teacher who knows you the best. So a lot of times for students applying to engineering, they were really good in their math class. You know, they did really well in their math or their science class. And so their teacher knows them as the student who came in, did their work and got an A. and that's all they know about them. And so sometimes, well, if you do know your computer science teacher well, and you had a good relationship with them and they know you and your interests and they can write a compelling letter, then that would be a great person to have write it. But if you didn't spend a lot of time with them because you did well in the class and so you didn't need that extra help, they might not have a lot to write about you besides you got an A, which we can see on your transcript. We don't need a letter to tell us that. So sometimes the better letters of recommendation actually come from a class that you struggled in, if you were going to office hours and you were meeting with your professor. So it doesn't matter who the teacher was. I guess what I'm saying, it doesn't matter what the professor wrote or what the professor
The subject
taught
of the
you.
class doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You want it to come from the teacher that knew you the best and can write the most compelling letter.
Great. The other thing I want to mention here, and you touched on this, Becky, is that we don't require letters of recommendation. We require the teacher counselor report, which is inside of the Common App, and the grand majority of time that is filled out by your college counselor at your high school, and that's all that we need. If you would like to submit additional letters of recommendation, you are more than welcome to. But again, what Becky said is people that have relationships with you, not necessarily because you think it's related to a subject matter. And more to the point, sometimes people think, oh, let me find some sort of USC alumni to write me a letter. No, that doesn't matter either. We want to make sure that the people that actually know you. And so there's no way to like find the right person to recommend you. That does not exist. Nicole, which part of the application do you mostly look into? Are certain parts of the application more important than the others?
We look at all of the parts, and I don't want, again, this is not a formula. I think this is what everyone's trying to like, what's 50% this and 25% that, but that's really not how we look at it. Academics are important, and we want to make sure that you're going to do well in an engineering and computer science curriculum. But we're looking at everything, your activities, your leadership, your short answers, letters of recommendation, everything is important to our review process.
And I'll say too, it's not like a test, like this question is worth this many points or this question is worth this many points. It really is looking at the whole thing and looking at you as a whole person. That's what all of the components do.
Yep. And that's the only way to do it, is by knowing every single part of that. And I think ultimately, one thing I'll add when you're going through, we say, answer it how you want to answer it, approach the question how you want to approach it. I will add one element to that, because this comes up a lot in a frustrating way. Sometimes you either overthink your answer too much based on some of the earlier answers that we've given, or you've worked on so many applications that you have some shortcuts where you're like revising answers from other universities' applications and putting them into ours because you think it's relatively similar. Don't do that, because what will end up happening is that your editing that you'll do on that will actually make it to us, because we've never seen any of these other versions. We'll read it, and I have oftentimes gone through an application where I said, they didn't answer the question. So like, make sure that you're answering the question. Read the question again, read your response. Did you actually answer that question? That's what's most important to us, because that's how we're trying to get to know you. And so we don't want to go through your application and at any point have any questions about you. We want to learn more about you as we keep going. And I think that that's an important element. A question I'll anticipate later is like, and Angie said this already, that we read all of the application, but sometimes people think that the engineering school only reads the engineering questions and USC reads it. No, we're reading all of it all the way through, because again, that is the whole encompassing bits of information that make up who you are. And we can't say this enough, but we are human beings that are reading what you wrote and making subjective decisions and understandings about you in relation to 14,000 other applications. And we're not valuing one over the other. We're just trying to put together a good group that we think is going to be really dynamic and interesting. Rita, in one of my essays, I want to share some of my personal life, but I will also talk about my growth. I've heard people say that discussing your struggles, for example, death, financial situations, et cetera, is cliche, but I consider them and what I learned from them to be a huge part of my identity. Cool, write about them. That's our point. You've put it very concrete and specific to you, but you read the questions. What do you want to write about? What do you find that shares about you, whatever you want to share, and go for it. What I'm seeing in these questions, and what we get a lot of what we can kind of understand in the questions that you're asking, and also the question we've been getting a lot to our inbox lately, you all need to get off of Reddit. You all need to stop reading Reddit threads You need to stop reading College Confidential. That is wrecking your brain. All of you are being influenced by, I heard this, I heard that, I heard this. It's all BS, all of it. There's no way to manipulate it or anything else. And the more that you do, you're going to mess it up. Again, write to us. Let us know who you are. Put your best foot forward. It needs to be well written so we can understand it. But get off of Reddit, get off of College Confidential, because what you're getting out of this is like, oh, I heard that's cliche. Like, who cares? We're trying to get to know you. If that's your life, that's great. That's what we want to know. What we don't necessarily want is people then, again, strategizing. I'll give a quick example. Someone who thought they had to write about this really horrible thing in their life, and they end up writing this essay that was not a horrible thing in their life, but they made it sound like a horrible thing in their life. And I wondered, like, wow, does that person actually think that that's a horrible thing in their life? It didn't work. So don't go that direction. We need to make sure that we're just trying to get to know you a little bit better. Okay. Anything else on that, y'all? I jumped into like a larger pool with that, but. Arturo, can the personal essay and supplemental essay share similar information? Again, answer the questions. I'm sure your life overlaps a lot. Am I misreading this, guys?
No, I think, yeah, my thing is, and Paul just talked about this, is when it doesn't answer the question. And so if you're answering the question and the answer to the two different questions have similar information going into them, that's fine. New information or different information about the same topic is always welcome, because again, we are reading we're reading the essays and the university short answers and our short answers. And so having a little bit of difference in the information is always good, just so we get more information from you. But if answering the question revolves around the same topic, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be repetitive. I like to explain, like, we're reading everything like a big paper, right? And so everything goes down. And here's your big essay, and then right behind that, here's your shorter essays, here's the quick takes, here's supplemental essays. We're reading that basically in order. And if all of a sudden we're reading something like, didn't we just read that? Like, didn't I just see that? That's weird. And then again, you might want to ask yourself, are you answering the question? Because sometimes people misread these questions and think we're asking the same thing twice, and we're not. We're not at all. Jazz, what is the purpose of the really short questions? Favorite snacks, TV show you'll binge next? Do we also need to give a reason for each thing that we choose? Stacy.
No, so I said it.
This is your answer. You're all this.
I said it earlier, but these are the short answers, the quick takes. So with these, it's really just to break up the application. So when you're filling out the application, it kind of lets you just kind of put in these extra answers so we get to know you a little bit better. You don't have to put your reasoning for them. Is the reason that, you have a favorite Trader Joe's snack as your favorite snack? It's probably one of my favorites too. That's awesome. But you don't need to give me a reason why you like Joe's O's or whatever. It's fine. Everything on there is.
What are Joe's O's? Am I missing something?
It's actually cereal. It's a cereal. It's like
Joe's
cereal.
O's.
Yeah, we found the strawberry yogurt ones, and Avery's like in heaven.
Oh, those have been a regular in my house for years.
They have honey nut Joe's O's as well. So if you want the honey nut flavoring too. But basically, yeah, it breaks up the application for you. It breaks up the application for us reading it. So I'm not constantly reading essays or the longer answers. It gets sort of, again, it's just another way to get to know you a little bit.
And it's
more.
sometimes some little bits of your personality,
Yeah.
just tell us what's going on with you. Like, and you don't need to explain it. Just let us know. I mean, like, if you feel like you must, like it's a really weird thing, then go for it. But I think I got last year, like, how do I answer favorite snack? I'm like, I don't know. What's your favorite snack? She goes, raspberries. I'm like, put it down. She goes, well, should I tell you why? I'm like, do you have a reason that raspberries are your favorite snack? I'm like, they're delicious. Like, I don't know. Like, put them down.
There's also a word or character limit anyway. So you're not going to be able to write a whole essay again about why you like Trader Joe's snacks.
Cool. Stingda, can you walk us through a typical procedure in which a freshman or undergraduate works on a project at a lab? I'm particularly interested in the cognitive architecture. So a typical procedure for first, you get your paper out, then you get a pen, then you write your name on your, no. How does someone get involved in research?
Well, I will say too, this Sunday, we have a student run live chat that is actually all about research, like specifically research. And so we're going to have a student panel talk about their experiences. So this is a perfect question for them. The short answer is really, your comfort level in reaching out to professors and writing emails and stuff to professors. And so once you write those emails, you can actually go meet with the professors, talking to them. A lot of times, depending on what space they have in their labs, you might be able to join them in other ways too. But definitely the specifics. Yeah, Angie put the chat link to register for that. Everything, different types of labs and everything like that, they'll be talking about on Sunday as well.
Absolutely. Lots of opportunities. Great plug for that, because it's a perfectly timed live chat. And that's going to be really, really cool to hear all about our students' research experiences, hands-on projects, and how you might be able to get involved when you are a student. You can do that as early as your first year. Reagan asks, does USC Viterbi look at senior year grades when making an admission decision? Yes. Yes, we will. As I stated earlier, you've probably taken, every year your classes get harder. So if you're taking your hardest classes senior year, well, then therefore we want to see how you're doing in those classes. So your fall semester grades this year are likely going to be some of your most important. And they're likely going to have some pretty critical classes based where we can understand your preparation for the engineering curriculum, like calculus. So we're going to need to see those grades. Arushi, this is based off of a question already asked, but does talking about issues with mental health depression, especially during COVID and overcoming it, not recommended? I've heard some say that it might throw a red flag and it's safer to not talking about it. Again, get off of Reddit. I've heard, every time I hear I've heard, just stop. Anytime you say yourself, I've heard, just get off the rumor mill. Talk about what's important to you. Don't try to guess what we're going to do. And why would we ever do something like that? This is, first of all, specifically this year, last year, I don't know what day it is anymore. We're all dealing with something at various levels, and why not? If that's something that speaks to you and that's relevant to you, talk about it. That said, there is specific information in the Common App that asks you about COVID. And I would recommend that when things are related to COVID, that you put it into those particular questions so that you can talk about more things in your life later on. But again, speaking out of both sides of my mouth, if it is relevant to the question that you're answering, go for it. But there's a reason that those questions are there, because we want to understand that specifically, because we don't want to take away your word count to explain more of who you are over your entire life over just the last year or two. Anyone else want to add anything on that?
I mean, sorry, we're not going to judge you for that either. We're having mental, like, we've also been going through a pandemic as well, like the 5 of us. So there's lots of different things that can come up at different times. So you're not going to be judged. It's not a red flag if a student has had a hard time during the pandemic. That's not anything to worry about.
Becky?
Well, I have thoughts going on in my mind, and I'm not.
I know I can see them. I'm curious whether you want to say
you can see them. But I mean, I think mental health, depression, those are things that in the past have been very cliche, and like taboo and not talked about. And I think that has changed a lot. And like Stacy said, if you had a hard time when you were first sent,
you mean, just stop you real quick. You mean like in general, not college admission,
just in
talking
general
about mental health has been taboo, not cliche, but it's been taboo.
Yeah,
that
taboo.
We're coming generationally out of that, where it's much more open and welcoming to talk about these things. And of course, we're welcome to hear about these things and understand them.
Yeah, and I guess just going off of what Stacey said, we're not going to judge you. It's not going to cause a red flag. It actually gives us more insight into what you've been dealing with and who you are. And maybe there was a semester or class that you didn't perform well in, and having that context, I think is a good thing at times. And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it throwing red flags in the review process and making us not want to admit you just because of that. It's something I think actually puts context into your application.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Phoebe says, random question, but why does USC's CS curriculum begin with teaching C++ instead of more commonly Python or Java? It's a very unique way to build a CS foundation. I'm wondering if there's a reason USC decided to teach CS this way. Phoebe, you're wrong. It's not a unique way to teach a CS foundation. It's actually the way to teach a CS foundation because it's harder. Starting with Python and Java is easier, which is why it's taught in high schools. And so it's the idea of like tricking you into believing you know how to code, right? Getting this idea of like, you got Python, Java, let's say I would do some stuff, which is a cool way of doing it. But if you're going to be a professional in this area and you're going to build up that skill set, C++ is what almost every language out there is based on. When you know C++, you have the ability to tweak your knowledge just slightly in one day to kind of adjust and adapt to that language. Oftentimes we get a different question, which is, what languages do you teach in? And we don't teach in any particular language. You start off in C++ because that allows you to adapt and move. And you might use a number of different languages based on your own preferences or the specific constraints of the project you're working on. It is common for a CS class, higher level class, app development class, large software system class, where you'll be developing programs and maybe doing it in small teams. And every single team is doing it in a slightly different environment with a different coding language involved, because they had a different perspective on how you're going to use that. So there's not one language to rule them all, but C++ is the one that most of them are going to be based on. And that's why it started. I'd recommend you also check out our live chat with the CS faculty, where some of this is talked out a little bit more. Maybe Michael could put a link over to the page where we have all of our faculty live chats to talk a little bit about the CS curriculum and also help you understand a little bit more breadth and depth into what CS gets into. But CS, starting with C++ is where you want to go. That's how you want to start, because that's going to take you a lot farther down the road. It can be harder in the beginning, but as you start going, you're like, oh, I know how to do, oh, I know how to do that. I know how to do that. Venkat, the deadline for consideration of merit scholarships was December 1st. Does that mean if applying now will not be considered for any scholarships? Well, Venkat, yeah, you missed the deadline. If you didn't apply by December 1st, the December 1st deadline for the larger USC scholarships was December 1st, and no students who apply now will be considered for those larger scholarships. That does not mean that you're locked out of all possible scholarships. There are some scholarships that do exist and are awarded that aren't even named in the application process. And so there are possibilities of scholarships, but those larger scholarships, full tuition, half tuition, only students that apply by December 1st are available to those. But there are some other ones that do exist and are awarded outside of that. So keep that in mind. Some scholarships are available. We have a link for some of the other scholarships that are available outside of admission that we can put into the chat as well, just to give you more sense of seeking those things out. And the other thing I want to tell you about is that you shouldn't rely on scholarships. You should be applying for need-based financial aid, and you should not count yourself out of need-based financial aid. Applying to financial aid is something you'll do after you apply for admission, and you need to fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile, along with some other documents you might need based on your own family circumstances. But we can put a link into financial aid as well, so you can learn a little bit more about how financial aid works, the types of things you're going to apply to. And we recommend that everybody applies for financial aid if you've never done it before, because that's going to yield at least some creative financing options, but at most it might be opportunities to help you afford a private education, because we don't want anyone not to come to USC because they couldn't afford it. So the opportunities of our financial aid options are incredibly robust. We give 100% of determined student need into that. And so if you're in need of a certain amount of money, we're going to give you that amount of money, mostly in grant money, and so a combination of some loans and work study on the side there. Okay, I think I did that one. Nicole, what's the most important part I should look into when I'm applying, applicating? Well, I think you mean applying to USC. I don't know what she means by look into. Does she think that, is this a repeat of the question where what's the most important part of the application?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, the no one important part, we've said that already, just do your best across the whole thing. Leo, I'm interested in CS games at USC, but I'm not sure how big that program is. Does it matter? I think it's small compared to other games programs, but not sure of the numbers. Can you tell about how many students graduate with that CS major every year? I think we're around 25, maybe 30. Does anyone have that number off the top of their head?
No, Michael, do you? No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, because students change their major all over the board. You know, it is a premier program. It's one where you combine the opportunities of our cinematic arts school, along with computer science, developed with industry partnerships. Students are walking out with lots of success. I don't know whether small or big makes it good or bad, I think is the big issue there.
But also just thinking about that program, the CS games students take many, if not all, of the same programming courses as a CS student and a CSBA student and a CECS student. So that Computer Science 103, Intro to C++ Programming, you're taking it with all the other computer science students. So you're not in a class of 6, you're in a you're in a larger class with those students as well. So depending on what you're looking for, it's kind of mixed in with the rest of the computer science students, and then your specific courses in games and 3D animation, interactive media, those are going to be smaller courses.
I'd also point you back to the link that Michael put in about the faculty roundtables, because this computer science faculty roundtable has an in-depth discussion about computer science in general, but also a really good section in there about computer science games with one of the faculty members from computer science games, which talks a little bit more about the curriculum, the opportunities, and how students are successful in that. You may want to check that out. Phoebe is asking what personal qualities are most important in order to succeed as a student at USC? Are there?
I mean, I can think of qualities of students who are successful at USC.
Let's do that.
So I think one, well, not one, I'll kind of throw out a couple. The ability to collaborate and work together, that teamwork is really important. The ability to ask for help. I think a lot of our students are really strong students in high school, and then they get to USC and they don't think they need tutoring or they don't need to go to office hours. And it's a really hard transition for them to realize, I do need academic help. I do need to ask for support that I've never had to do before. And so being able to kind of get over that idea of being tutored instead of the tutorer, I guess, is really important because you will just be so much more successful if you rely on help from your faculty, TAs, peers, other people who are there specifically to help you, I think is really important. And then also students who kind of go out there and get involved. Some of the students who are most successful are the ones who take on leadership roles in their fun social student organizations. They get those soft skills. You will learn the technical skills in your classes and in your degrees, but those abilities to communicate and collaborate and work together and be mentors and be leaders will help you go even further after college. And so I think those students who get really involved and take on those leadership roles in their student organizations are very successful when they graduate.
I want to clarify something on Becky's answer, but also want to give you all an opportunity. Go through and upvote. We got 10 minutes left. So you want to see questions answered, you hit that upvote button on the questions you want to see pop to the top. So make sure you're going through all the way. And because in 10 minutes, I don't know how many we can get through. The stuff we just talked about does not mean you take that and you say, now I'm going to work that into my application. That won't work. That doesn't make any sense. I think we're just trying to give you some basic advice. And if you do come to USC, how to be successful. And what Becky talked about a lot, which is be part of the community, ask for help. Those are all really important skill sets. Whenever students are doing poorly, in my experience of working at the school, whenever I see a student doing poorly, the first question I ask them with is, who are you studying with? And the answer is always they're doing it by themselves. You cannot be successful in our program if you think you're going to do it by yourself. It's all about working in teams. And that means asking faculty for help and other students and friends and being part of that community and also getting involved. Oftentimes I'll ask the student, if you're not doing well in your first year, well, what are you involved in? Well, I didn't get involved in anything because I wanted to focus on my grades. Well, how's that turning out for you? It's often that students do poorly when they're not involved, when they're not engaging. Community engagement at the university is where you will find the most success, not only at school, but also in your life. Nikki asks a question. Are applications viewed in the order in which they're submitted? No. I don't think we have any rhyme or reason to how we go about applications. I mean, we do this first batch. We've been reading applications for those that submitted by December 1st. We've been reading those now. But then we're kind of looking at them all as a whole. That's the biggest part. It's all about comparison to others. There's not a way to help you understand this. There's not a way that you can read an application to decide whether you're going to admit them. It's all about reading, sorting, understanding, reading more, sorting and understanding, reshuffling, rethinking them out. It's Becky said it before, context is key. Context of your school, context of other applicants. We're trying to understand everybody in context of everybody else. And so it is a long process that takes us all the way to the end of March. You will not receive an admission decision from us until we get to the end of March. If we need any other additional information from you as we're reading applications, we will reach out to you, but we will be reading consistently and then back and forth and then reading again and going over and having other people read, because we need multiple perspectives on multiple applications at multiple times. Okay. Ayush, do you award merit scholarships to international applicants? Yes. What are the considerations? Be awesome. And do you offer financial aid to international applicants? No. International applicants do not receive merit-based scholarship. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. International, Becky, go for it because I'm not speaking right.
International students are not eligible for need-based financial aid. They are eligible for merit-based scholarships.
Yeah. Danny, queuing my three friends, Angie, Michael, and Stacy, for this question. What is the best trait or feature of USC Viterbi that is unique to the school?
Sorry, we're just looking at each other like who's gonna answer it. I would, this is us, obviously, first of all, but followed by that, I think Viterbi is unique, and something I hear from students is just the ability to be able to do things beyond engineering that a lot of other schools are maybe going to give you limited or no opportunities to take classes outside of engineering, to explore your interests that you have right now, to learn something new if you want to. We have beyond engineering over 150 majors, over 150 minors. So this idea of interdisciplinary education, engineering plus, if you've heard us talking about it in the past, I think that's one of the most unique things that you'll find at Viterbi, is like the ability to do beyond engineering and study things that you're interested in outside of engineering and combining it with engineering.
Yeah, I would say, like, to me, one of the most unique features, something that I find interesting, is sort of the way students talk about Viterbi feeling very small and close knit. Like, you're going to know a lot of engineering students, but then having the resources of a larger university. So you can be in a class with 25 people, sometimes even less. And then you can also go to then a football game at a stadium that has 75,000 people at it, kind of thing. So there's even more than that. So there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of the like small, close knit community. Take some dance classes, take some music classes, take your really fun engineering classes, be part of a full university at the same time.
Yeah, just to add on to what's already been said, we were the first engineering school to reach gender parity, and we just repeated that accomplishment again with our most recent incoming class. Again, as Stacy and Angie have already mentioned, if you're not 100% defined by engineering, and if you are, that's fine too, but there are lots and lots of students who have interests outside of engineering. And there are a lot of opportunities here to explore those other interests. And that includes being able to study abroad, which you can't do at all schools. You can switch your major. You can't do that at all schools. I think all of those things in combination are really what make us unique, rather than just one list item on its own.
Great answers. Everybody get ready for this next one. Everybody has to give the one answer.
I have so
Who's
many
the
opinions.
coolest USC Viterbi professor? We're being recorded and I'm sending this to all faculty afterwards. So who's the coolest USC Viterbi professor?
I plead the fifth.
No, I need answers from every one of you.
I mean, I think
And
Professor,
Becky, you have an answer. I know you have an answer. There's someone I know you do. Angie, who is it?
I was just going to say Professor Ronnie, because he has horses. And so I think that makes it cool already. Just that, you know?
Because during the COVID times, he led Zoom classes at his barn and he had the horse
Yeah.
behind it. That made him the coolest one.
Yeah. His assistant, that was his assistant for the semester.
What was his name? Michael, do you remember his name? The horse's name?
Hercules or something.
I
Hercules.
don't remember. Yeah, there have been a couple of them. But actually, we have proof too. I'll pull up the link of the AME page. We have I think it's the faculty roundtable here. If you scroll down a little bit, I'll put this link in the chat window. You actually get to meet his executive assistant as well.
Okay, so one
All right,
vote for
there you
Dr.
go.
Ronnie from Aerospace Mechanical. Who's next?
Garrett Reisman, he mostly teaches graduate classes, I believe, but is an astronaut. Paul Ronnie also was an astronaut as well. So
Yeah, we picked both astronauts in our faculty to be the coolest ones. Reisman's really cool though, and Reisman has a funny podcast. It's called like Funny Astronauts or something like that, because he has this podcast that's really funny. Reisman's cool. Stacy?
I'm going to say what I like about Paul Ronnie, though, as well as during scholarship interviews back when they were in person, if there was an astronautical engineering student, he also gives them an autographed photo of himself in his astronaut outfit.
His astronaut headshot. He gives signed photos.
Right. So he signs that and that's their like parting gift. And so that's one of my favorite things. And I think I should start doing that too with all my students, just give them autographed pictures of myself. So I think Ronnie's great, but any professor that I'm doing interviews with is always my favorite.
Oh, is it my turn? I mean, I was gonna say Ronnie because of the horses. That was a reason. I know the students really like Radovich.
Yep.
Charles Radovich.
Yeah.
I think my I think my vote has to go for Dr. Spedding though.
Spedding.
Spedding.
I have a few votes. I'll put in.
You're only allowed to have one, Paul. If I can only
No,
have
but
one,
I've
you
got
can
reasons
have
for
one.
each of them, though. I got Andrea Armani, the chair of the chemical engineering department. I'm not Armani, Andrea Hodge. Sorry. There are two Andreas in chemical engineering. They're actually both really cool. Andrea Hodge, because she's the chair of the chemical engineering department. She does some really cool research, and I really like her a lot. Andrea Armani is really cool and does really cool stuff with research, and is actually one of our new vice deans. And I'll also throw out GJ. Why am I blanking on his last name? GJ
Alpha.
Alphen.
Alfond from computer science is super awesome. And then Andrew Goodney from computer science, I will put a vote out for him because we lived in the same freshman year dorm together. So I've known him for 25 years. And so I've known him for a very long time, and he's now a professor and knows a lot more than I do. So there's some cool USC Viterbi professors. Last question. Snigdha wins with the last question. I'm wondering if there are any cool traditions Viterbi students should look forward to. I saw a mannequin challenge once, I remember that, and was curious if there was a lot more like that.
Mannequin that was like in 2012.
That was like, yeah, social media challenge from a long time ago that I think is still up on their social media. I remember when they said, there's like, can we do that? I'm like, yeah, go for it. Cool traditions. I mean,
There's USC traditions. I don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, so I did this for the first time. I'm a grad student, not in engineering. I just want to make that clear, very clear. But students for games, I was really excited to do this when they're going to the games from the campus.
Football games you're talking about.
Yeah, football games. Yes, thank you, Paul. To see sport ball at the Coliseum. You kick the flagpole. I really wanted to do that. That was like one of my favorite things to do back in September. I was really excited to do that.
You get to kick the flagpole for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Which one did you go for? Left, middle, or right?
The one with the California flag. I don't know which one that was.
Left?
Maybe. First and last time, because, yeah.
That's the only game you're going to go to.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, there are concerts every semester, football games, of course. There are also like intramural tournaments for different sports. Trying to think what else. There are a lot of traditions. There's a lot of school spirit at USC.
So sometimes different organizations within Viterbi will have their own traditions. So like there might be senior traditions and things like that happen within design teams, that happen within our professional organizations, different senior gifts, types of things like that. Different things first year students do in the organization. So there's lots of even smaller traditions within the USC community too. So everyone has their school spirit.
That's an excellent way to approach this question, because I think what's different and what was hard to see is that it's not like high school where all of a sudden there's like a senior class and like you all kind of know it's broader than that. And students define their community at USC in a lot of different ways, and no two students define their community the same way. There will be certain things that students do at some residence hall versus others, because that's just what happens at that residence hall. Some students are really into football games and go into football games. Some are not. Some are really involved in outdoor activities. So they get involved in the outdoor community and they go hiking and rock climbing every weekend, or maybe they're involved in the surfing club and they go surfing every day. And they're, of course, in these different organizations and groups, micro traditions and things like that will happen. USC wide, I think was what a lot of the traditions we talked about, a lot related to spirit. But you'll notice that even they'll get into engineering specifics, like design teams will have annual traditions around when they actually go to competition. Like when the Society of Automotive Engineers takes their car to competition, they have certain things that they like to do. When the concrete canoe team is wrapping up their design process and how they want to get off into the water, they have certain traditions that they do. The Rocket Lab, whenever they have launches, they have certain traditions that they do. And they are all telling those stories and remembering them. And you will find a lot of those things as you go, and things will change over time too. I learned this quote a little while ago, but traditions are something that change over time, and something that each student community does a little bit differently. And there really aren't these things that happen because they've always happened. And I think that's a good thing. because I don't think a lot of old school traditions at universities are necessarily something we should continue in the future. And I've also learned that traditions are just peer pressure from dead people. So don't worry about traditions too much. Just worry about that. The traditions tend to be kind of a substitute for spirit and community. And one thing I want you to know is that community is incredibly strong. Students work incredibly well together. They have a lot of fun. They enjoy it. And our students that come to USC love USC. And that's why they came there. So on that note, I want to thank you all for taking the time to sit with us this evening and answering your questions. We got through over 30 of them, which was super exciting. There's lots of links in the chat. On our website, we have so many things devoted to this. You all need to focus on your application. Don't overthink it. Answer the question. Help us get to know you. If you have further questions, you can email us. But again, if it's like, how do I answer this question? We're going to give you the same answer we gave tonight. But our email address that Becky put no, that just went into us, Becky. You need to change that to everybody. But our email address is vadmit@usc.edu. And so make sure that you can email us if you'd like to do that. During our regular business hours, we have a web chat on our website that when we're available, just give us a minute or two to respond to that. You can also call us at 213-600-9919. Thank you, Angie. And so, but not now because it's the weekend and I got stuff to do. That's not work. And I think we all do. I think you should just focus on your application, get it submitted, get the work done, get it in. And then once you've submitted it, I wanted to make one strong recommendation. Forget about it. Don't keep checking status. Nothing's going to change. Make sure that you actually get everything in there that you need to get in. If we ever need anything else from you, we will follow up with you. When you do apply, you'll get an email from us so that you can create your applicant portal. I recommend you check that out and see if there's anything else you need to do. But other than that, that's it. Thank you all. We really appreciate you spending time with us. Have a fantastic weekend. We look forward to receiving your application. And then we've got a lot of work to do to read all of them. So we will go off and do that. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.